My name's Bill, and I'm an alcoholic. Sound okay? Okay. It's good to be here. This whole process started last February when I got a text from Mr. Robert there, and his question was, and he never did explain who we were wondering if you would be willing to come to Kansas, to Wichita, Kansas, and speak. And I don't really like the term speaker, but what I do when I get up here is hopefully I will be sharing. And I text back that it would be an honor to come and share my recovery with the people of Wichita, Kansas. And that's what I came here to do. So I want to thank all the people. The potluck was wonderful. The food was great. The fellowship, the people that I've met here and the people that I already know, it's just good to have some familiar faces in the audience. And it's great to have a bunch of friends I just haven't met yet. So I want to thank my contact was Bobby R. And I want to give him the opportunity. He's the one that officially called me and asked me to speak. It's always an honor to be asked, and you know, I want to welcome anybody that's fairly new to Alcoholics Anonymous, anybody that is celebrating a birthday of any kind. Congratulations on that. We're all examples that this program works, and that's the best way to describe me. I really kind of try to put forth some effort to be a halfway decent example of what this program can do. What I'm here to share tonight is basically what's worked for me, and basically share my take on things. And on the other hand, if I basically bring up anything that you could use to enrich the life of somebody you care about or for your own recovery, please use it, because I didn't darken the doorways of Alcoholics Anonymous with many of the things I have to share tonight. So about me, this is always my favorite subject. I feel like I'm this far away from home. I ought to describe a little bit more of who I am. I am a retired sheet metal worker. I was a construction worker for 42 years. I started when I was 17, and I got hurt when I was 59 and went out on disability. And then they basically pushed me into retirement, which I am absolutely having the time of my life. But this section of my talk also has a subtitle, and it's "Why Should I Listen to This Guy?" And that's a very valid question. I asked that question a lot when I first came in, and here's a few of the things I do. I do have a home group. It's Group 62. It's called A Better Way of Life, and it meets every Wednesday at 7:30 at the North County Intergroup office, which is in Hazelwood, Missouri, which is a suburb of St. Louis. I attend meetings on a regular basis. A typical week, I go to probably at least 3, sometimes 4, sometimes many. And I have a sponsor, and I also sponsor other people. The count right now is about 10. The day I took my last drink was July 14th, 1975, 49 years ago. Thank you. And not one day did I stay sober on my own self-will. I have always reached out to something or somebody. And when I'm asked to do something in AA, I generally just say before I even think it would be an honor, because I'm like a lot of people. I'm not supposed to be here. And I loved speaker meetings when I first came in. And I always look in the back row, because that's where I always sat. I sat in the back. I came in the door and I sat right in the back row. I didn't care if anybody said hi. I didn't want eye contact with anybody. I just wanted to listen, but I was always attracted to the people that got up there and spoke, and I loved the way that their openness, and their honest and generous sharing. They would be up there talking about all these god awful things they did and all the situations they got themselves into, and it amazed me that anybody could be that open and honest and willing to share as those people up there, and. The other thing that happened to me was I learned how to listen. And by listening, I don't know about you, but I had to put all my preconceived notions and ideas, I had to set them aside, and I had to try to to pick up the person that was speaking, because they had something I didn't have and really couldn't even imagine having. But by listening to them, my first inklings of any honesty in the program was I was sitting in the back row, and I would nod my head, when they would share, and I would say, you know what, that happened to me, or you know what, I've done that, or you know what, I remember I used to think that way too, or maybe most important, I felt that way too. And but to truly listen, but the last thing, and this is still true today when I walk into a meeting, is I felt safe. And when I got here, I didn't feel safe in too many places. And the last thing I have to share on this subject was when I was sitting in the back row, I never thought I would be the guy up there at that podium speaking. And here I am. So we'll get into some other things. What I really like to share tonight is how I ended up in the AA. It certainly wasn't part of my life's plan. Some of the things I've gone away along the way to get myself from where I was at to where I'm at today, and that will include, I'll kind of go through the steps. I'll kind of navigate the way I perceived and worked the steps and incorporated them into my own life, and then hopefully I can get to the best part of this all, and that's life today. And so I will start off with my childhood, and I don't put any great emphasis on this. I don't go into any analysis of the kind of kid I was, but there was a couple things that's always worth noting. And I didn't seem to fit into things like other people did. I still remember in my kindergarten class, my parents went up to meet with the teacher, and they said, well, he doesn't really seem to want to join in on some of the things we do and stuff. And my mom asked her what did they do? And they said, oh, well, they play like Ring Around the Rosary and all this. And my bigger sisters did that stuff. That was goofy stuff to me. To me, I didn't really want to join into that stuff, but I never seemed to fit in. And I'm definite on this one. Was I missed the meeting that I know every other human being on the face of this earth got to, and it was called the understanding of life. I just never got it, And sometimes I still think maybe I belong in that thing. The last drink I took. It was on a Monday night. It was July 14th. My wife was out of town with my 2-year-old daughter, who's 52 now, and it wasn't. I was walking out the front door to commit suicide. Life wasn't worth living, and I had, it wasn't like I didn't have anything. I was 25 years old. I had a house that was half paid for. I had 2 new cars. I had a job that paid me more money I never dreamt of making. And still, life just wasn't getting there. I had, I used to always think that if I could get to this next point, if I could just, like when I started drinking at 15, if I could just graduate from high school and get through that, life would be okay. Or if I could just get a good job, or if I could just get away from my parents, because they were they had ideas that I didn't really care to go in for. If I could just get married, if I could just have a house, a baby, a new car or 2, all those things. It was just, that was the way, and I kept getting there, and it was wrong. I still never felt any decency, never felt any self-worth on the inside, and life just wasn't making it. And I knew that the night I took my last drink, I knew I would have swore everything I owned or everything I would ever own that there wasn't another solitary soul on the face of this earth that experienced life the way I did. I couldn't conceive of it. The other thing was, if I ever told anybody the way I really felt on the inside, they'd lock me up and throw away the key, because I was so full of hatred and contempt for everybody and everything around me. I couldn't even stand being who I was at the end of it all. And the last thing is something I still don't understand the depth of this conviction. The night I took my last drink, I told myself I wasn't going to live that way anymore, not even for one more day. I took 3 steps out that door, and something clicked in me that I still can't explain. The only thing I could explain is divine providence. I think God was just up there shaking his head and saying, give it to him. He's had enough. And I turned back around and I walked back in the door. And you know, I still remember going to my first meeting. And I sat there and I didn't understand. These people were amazing. And they asked me if I wanted to share, and I basically sat there debating whether I should say I'm an alcoholic or not. And I knew I was, but I didn't know if I should. And I did finally say, my name's Bill and I'm alcoholic. And the first thing I said, the first statement I've ever made in an AA meeting, I looked around the room and they were all smiling because they knew I was new. And I said, I don't know what all you people are smiling about. I can't think of anything in life right now that's worth smiling about. And I listened to the rest of the meeting, and I still remember getting up. And I walked halfway through the door. And if I was in the room, I could tell you what square of tile I was standing on when it hit me. I said, I don't know what these people have, and I'm going to keep coming back until I get it. And I'm over 49 years sober, and I haven't gotten it yet. If I ever get it, I'll probably walk out the door and never come back. But it's a process. The AA program is a process. And we work on it. We try to make a little progress today. And if we do that, we're doing just fine. And I'm gonna spend a little bit of time, and I didn't even start my watch, but I'll get it going here. What time is it? I'm not going to run over, so I have a limit where I'm at. I know where I'm at. So, step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. I don't know about anybody else, but I didn't go to an AA meeting until I knew I was absolutely and completely beat. It was when I walked into that meeting, I felt like the biggest loser on the face of this earth, and if I didn't know I was completely beat, I wouldn't have went there. And so step one was pretty easy. I still remember reading it up on the board. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. My first thought was, me too. That little we, that didn't include me yet. And I'll get to the point where I was included to me. But step one was I always say it was kind of a slam dunk. It was, by the time I got here, I had drank every bit of fun, every bit of even hopes of even having fun out of my life. And step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I think when I got halfway to the door of my first meeting and I said, I don't know what these people have, but I'm going to keep coming back until I get it, I realized that recovery was possible. And that is the very essence of the step two, is when we know in our hearts that recovery is possible, because the evidence was right here in front of me and the people that were sitting in that meeting. I knew it by the way they shared. I knew it by the way they behaved. I knew it by the way that they accepted me and welcomed me into their meeting. And they told me to keep coming back. Nobody was telling me to come back anymore. And step three was a bit of a hurdle for me. I had a very religious background as far as my childhood. Went to religious schools all 12 years of my schooling. I had a lot of beliefs in God. I knew a lot about God. I could recite a lot of things, but I had never felt Him in my heart. And certainly I never had the thought of turning my will and my life over to the care of Him. But when I got here, I knew I had to have something. And I knew it wasn't going to be me, because I had tried to will away my desire to drink, and it just wasn't possible. And so I kind of battled with this, and I interviewed a lot of people on how they got through this step. And my father had a very artistic printing, and I had him print the third step prayer on a piece of canvas. And I hung it in my bedroom, so it was the first thing I saw when I got up. And every morning I would say, God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as I will. And I would say that prayer, and sooner or later, after a few days, it was there. I trusted it. I trusted that decision enough that I could let go. And my third step was complete when I picked up the pencil and started writing my fourth step. And I started on a Monday night after I got off of work. And I wrote Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That pen weighed about 150 pounds on Monday night. And on Thursday night, it was as light as a feather, and I couldn't write fast enough. And I closed the notebook on a Thursday night, and I went to work the next day. And when I got off of work, I sat down and I thought, I want to read this inventory, but I want to read it as objectively as I can. So I kind of envisioned I was sitting in my house, and me and my inventory were out the window. So I gave me some objectivity, and I sat there and I read my inventory. When I got to the last page, I closed it, and my first thought was, I am everything I've always hated in everybody else. And that didn't cause a division between me and other people. There was a connection. There was a connection. You guys were just like me. I just wasn't willing to admit it. My exterior was always much different than what I felt like on the inside. And I didn't have to live that way anymore. And I met my sponsor at the North County office, and he drove us to an Italian restaurant on a Saturday afternoon about 1:30, and there wasn't a soul in the whole restaurant. And I had the waitress sit me all the way back in the back corner, so nobody in the restaurant could overhear anything I was going to share with my sponsor. And I shared my fourth step with my sponsor for the next hour and a half or 2 hours. And when I got back in the car and he drove me back up to the North County office and I got out, I still remember looking up and seeing how blue the sky was. I hadn't noticed that for a long time. And I walked back up into the North County office. There was nobody in there except the person on the phones. And I went into the meeting room, sat there by myself to reflect on what I had done. And I looked up at the 12-step board. When I saw the word we, that I was included in that we, because I had done something tangible to try to bring about recovery and some order into my life. I had faced who I was, and I had shared that with God and with another human being. And that was one of the turning points for me. Step six was not really that bad of a step for me, and I can tell you why. Because at that point in time, when I got to step 6, here was the choice. Am I willing to let God remove all these defects of character, or do I want to go back and live the way I was living? That choice was not really hard to take. The seventh step is where, in my heart, I believe the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous takes place, because that's where we bring God into our lives to day by day make the changes that we need to just become a little bit better people. 8, I had my list written. The next Saturday, after I took my inventory, I walked out the front door with my amends list, and I made the amends to the ones I had to get rid of. I had to do. As far as I was concerned, if I didn't make these amends, I wasn't going to stay sober. And my first one was my ex. My second one was to the people in my family, and then the next one was probably the last friend I had on the face of this earth. And I walked into his house, and him and his wife got married very young. But they had a house, and that's where all the parties were. So me being who I was, I disrupted a lot of those things, and I went back to make my amends to them. And as I sat there and I was making my amends to him, his mouth fell open. And he said, "It's like I knew a guy named Bill." He said, "And now this new guy just showed up at my front door." And this was like with about two months of sobriety. He said, "You're not the same person that I knew 2.5, 3 months ago." And I said, "I have something that seems to be working." And so I always relate to that, because he was literally stunned at who I was when I walked in that door. And I had started feeling the effects of recovery in my own personal life because I was facing the things that were haunting me through these steps. And I continued to take the A step. I had my list, and don't think that God doesn't work in these things because I had the section that I had to make just to stay sober. Then I had, if the time ever comes and makes it available, I'll make these amends. Well, these people started showing up in donut shops, in movie theaters, in restaurants, and just walking down the street. These people were right there. And when I had the opportunity, I still remember the one guy that was going to walk out of the restaurant. I had stole some money from him in a poker game. He dropped a bill on the floor, and I took it. And he was supposedly my best friend, and I sat there at the table, and he was walking out, and I thought, if I don't do this, I am passing up a great opportunity to grow as a human being. I walked out there and I made the amends, and he just kind of brushed it off. He said, "You shouldn't have thought anything of it." And I thought, "I know." I said, "I know it didn't bother you." I said, "But it bothered me," and I made that amend, and still, every time I made an amend, I knew I felt a little freer. And so step nine, I just worked as I got by. I think there was one on the list that I ended up. It was a corporation. I ended up just writing a letter with an amount of money in it to cover the money, the things I had stole from them. And so that gets us to step 10, 11, and 12. And these are ones I really have been trying to emphasize because it seems like they're the ones that don't go away. Once we work the first 9 steps, we've kind of straightened our past out to a certain degree. We get to live and grow through the 10, 11, and 12. And to me, I have to keep those 3 steps exciting and somewhat beneficial, or my sobriety goes stagnant. And I've suffered from that in my 40s. I wish I could say I've grown every day of my, last month a sponsee of mine runs a meeting called Day Counters. And when you walk in there, and he has me talk there quite frequently, and he will ask you point blank, how many days do you have? And he just gave me an 18,000 day coin about 2 weeks ago. And to them that's really a big deal. I just kind of, it's the 18,000 days is a hell of a lot better than going back out there and trying to start over again. So step 10, and this is, and one thing he has me do is he'll ask me to come and share my 5 favorite phrases about a step. So I'm going to be quoting some of the book of most of them is going to be out of the 12 and 12 because my home group is a 12 and 12 study group, which the context of that book gives me an understanding of the steps that is easier to explain to new people. The big book is basically just do it. The 12 and 12 is understand it. And if I understand it and I can explain it to somebody new, it might make sense. It might be the difference from them trying to do it and maybe saying, this is too hard, I'm just going to blow this stuff off. And so I'm big on the steps. But step 10, the first one is this is right in the beginning of the 12 and 12. It says, as we work the first 9 steps, we prepare ourselves for the adventure of a new life. But when we approach step 10, we commence to put our AA way of living to practical use day by day, fair weather or foul. And the other one, I know I was sitting next to somebody, we were within 2 weeks of each other when the first time I read this, and we were both outraged. It's a spiritual axiom that every time we're disturbed, there's something wrong with us. There was no way that when they first read that to me, it was like, that's ridiculous. And but today, I will say, every time I'm upset, there is definitely something wrong with me. But it had to grow on me. I had to apply that principle to my life enough that I know when I'm upset, I need to know why. Why am I getting upset over this? And this next phrase, I don't know if it's changed me that much, but I can tell you that it's probably saved me more grief in my sobriety than any other statement. And that is, self-restraint carries a top priority rating, which means there are times I just need to keep my big mouth shut and to me, it's rewarding. I've never kept my mouth shut in a situation where, I want to invest my own opinions in something. And this is one of the kinder ones and the kinder statements, but it's very, very true. And it's courtesy, kindness, justice, and love. These are the keynotes which will put us in harmony with practically anyone. And that's a very useful thought for me, especially when I'm getting into something that I might be jumping in the middle of. So that's kind of all with step 10. But step 10 is a very important, the self-reflection and just basically, thinking of who I am as a human being, and in this step, I've kind of turned the table from what's wrong with me to what kind of human being do I want to be? In other words, what attributes would I like to strengthen? And to me, it's kind of a more positive way to approach my growth. And to me, it's a little more comfortable. What kind of person do I want to be? I know somebody. He just handles things in a way that I don't seem to be able to do. And I'll go start a conversation with him on how he works his program. What does he do? And where am I at time-wise? Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Step 11. I'm very conscious of time. I got a sponsor of mine that he talks about when people start talking. He says, I don't want people to start talking and hold the rest of us hostage. So I'm not trying to hold anybody hostage. So step 11, there is direct, and this is kind of putting some of the program together, like 10 and 11. There's a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, but when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Now, who doesn't want that? I do. I don't like my life shaken by outside forces. I like to take care of it right in here with the God of my understanding. And to me, if I want a relationship with a God understanding, it's just like other human beings. I have to put some time in, and I do. I have enriched my 11th step over the years, and I always say in my 30-year range somewhere, I was going to meetings, I was sponsoring people. When I was asked to speak, I was saying all the right things, but the day came I was empty inside. And I thought, what's wrong? And I started thinking about some people I knew, and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, she was one of the most remarkable human beings. Her husband passed away as a result of First World War, and she raised 5 kids. She owned an insurance company, and we lived with them for like 6 years, and then she moved into my parents' house when I was still there, and so I lived with her like 10 years out of the 19 years I was at home. I don't think I ever heard her say a cross word or anything bad about any other human being. And she said she sat in her room and she said her prayers each and every day. And so I started picking out some prayers that I wanted to say, and I say set prayers every morning and every night. And in those prayers, most of them are just ones that we're very familiar with. Our Father, Serenity Prayer, the prayer to St. Francis, which is our 11th step prayer. And I would like to read that because this prayer probably saved who I was as a human being. It got me out of the rut of just feeling like I'm empty inside to something that was real. And I felt something about life that I hadn't felt. And I say this more than once a day. And that is, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace. Where there's hatred, may I bring love. That where there is wrong, may I bring a spirit of forgiveness. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. That where there is error, I may bring truth. That where there is doubt, that I may bring faith. That where there is despair, I may bring hope. That where there is sadness, may I bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. This is my favorite line because it was the hardest one for me to memorize when I did it, and you'll understand why. It is by self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven, and it is by dying that one is awakened to eternal life. That prayer changed my recovery, and I wouldn't let it go. I wouldn't let it go, and for anything amount, because it's changed who I was as a human being, even after 30-something years of sobriety. And step 12, I kind of approach this step in a little bit on a personal note. I will talk about the three sections of them, and this is very brief. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps is the greatest gift I've ever received in my life. Carrying the message is the greatest honor I've ever experienced in my life. And practicing these principles in all my affairs is the greatest challenge I've ever been faced with. And it is, and I'm still working on that one. So I am at life today, and where am I here? Oh, I got 10 minutes. So, life today. You're going to get 10 minutes of what life is like today, and it starts out with step 10, 11, and 12. They're still very active in parts of my daily life, and there's a little phrase, and it's out of the daily reflections. It's out of the daily reflections, and it's on November 6th. It talks about being centered. I'm trying to stay centered in my life, and that means being physically relaxed, emotionally calm, mentally focused, and spiritually aware. And I ask myself those questions. Where am I? Especially if I feel like my emotions are getting on edge. Another thing about my life today is, and I know this probably isn't the most humble statement, but I like who I am today. And it's just I don't mind being me. And when I came here, I couldn't stand it. And I have a love and a passion for Alcoholics Anonymous that seems endless to me. I'm in 49 years, I still go to as many meetings. I sponsor more people. When I'm asked to do something, I just say yes. It would be an honor, because I really enjoy being here and being a part of what we have here. Service work, we kind of changed it. I've been the alternate IR in my meeting. I've been the IR. I've been the GSR. I've been the alternate GSR. I've been the DCM of my district. I was on the archives committee for a couple years at the area level, and went down to the archives in St. Louis. Their central office has an archives room that has all kinds of stuff in it. And when I went there, and I volunteered to be the archives chair for District 3 and go down there every week, I thought I would learn about a bunch of neat history about AA that I would be able to share and really sound smart in AA meetings. And what I really found out was God's been in this thing. He's been into this thing from the very start, from the time that Bill Wilson first started this and met with Abby. God's been involved in this thing all the way along. And there's document after readings after whatever that basically prove that his hand's been in this thing, and hopefully his hand will stay in this for many days to come. And some of the people I've served with on different committees and stuff, they're the people I really seem I have a special closeness to. And actually our delegate will be rotating out in January. I used to sit next to her at the morning meetings up at the North County office, because she was a little thing. She was about this big, and she looked like she was scared to death. She was sitting in her chair shaking. So I'd go sit next to her because everybody knew I was safe. And so, but she's still a dear friend today, and we've given workshops on the traditions and stuff together. So there's a special closeness there. So I'm retired today. I enjoy life, and I stay active. I work out 3 or 4 times a week. I mow my lawn 3 or 4 times a week when it's growing, and I have people coming and knocking on the door saying, I want to talk to the person who takes care of this lawn. And I just tell them, I reseed every year. That's the big secret. But being an old timer isn't what I thought it would be. When I first came in and I saw these old timers, I thought they had this internal strength and power that they could just kind of like vaporize any problem that came in life. And it's not like that at all. There's just a certain peace. There's a certain peace and there's a certain faith that everything's going to work out exactly the way it's supposed to work out. And I know that in my heart, even though I don't always act that way. And one of the blessings of AA is that AA gives us a lot of things to do when we don't know what the hell to do. You know, there's always meetings, there's always committees, there's always the newcomer than you that you can explain things in a very simple way. You know, you can go up and say, I know the rest of these people are crazy, so just listen to me, you know. And we hope he gets well enough to leave him in his rearview mirror. And we all go through tough times. We all go through tough times, and I don't really have any special formula, but I'd like to share with you a couple of things that I try. And sometimes they work, sometimes, you know, things don't always get instantaneous better. I need to grow more. So, but some of the things I've tried is going to an extra meeting or two, opening up my 12 and 12 to the 10th step and reading it. There's a lot of good information on who I am as a human being, what I can do to avoid all the conflicts of life. And then I ask myself, I've already shared that, what kind of person do I want to be? You know, to me that's important. Step 11 is a big one. You know, there's some reading as Bill sees us, that the 11th step is the step that keeps us growing. And there's one on the back of the book. It's on page 321. It's probably my favorite reading. It's called The Results of Prayer. And I try not to pass up the opportunity to share my recovery with whether it's a newcomer outside or it's an auditorium full of people. I'm always honored when I get to come up here and share the miracle that happened to me in my life. I attempt to be aware of God's presence in my life today, and that basically is by incorporating step 11, by putting that 11th step into my prayer. The 11th step doesn't say gimme, gimme, gimme. It says what do I have to give, you know? And that's the reason. That's probably the reason it took me 30 years to incorporate that into my program. But you know, God's blessed me with it today. So. And then I attempt to be a halfway decent example that AA works. And let's see, where am I at? Yeah, I'm okay. So I am going to read, and this is something that guy that I sponsor that has the daily meeting and the day counters meeting. He counts every day. He asked me, and if my sponsor would have asked me to do this, I probably would have argued with him. But he asked me to come and share my gratitude list. And I always thought gratitude lists were kind of hokey. You know, I thought, I'm kind of, you know, if I'm grateful, people are going to know it by what I do. But when I sat down to do it, some things came out that I didn't expect. And so I will share. It doesn't take very long. I'm grateful for what it used to be like part of my program. Not a day goes by I don't remember what it was like when I got here. It keeps my program fresh. For the person I have become as a result of being an AA member and participating in the program and the fellowship. 3, the honor and privilege of having the opportunity to share as much as I do. Being able to sponsor other men in the program. When say thanks, I generally say I haven't stayed around 48 years by passing up the opportunity to enrich my own recovery. Or I'll say I get paid very well for what I do. And I do. For meetings, where I get the chance to listen to the experience, strength, and hope from a perspective other than my own, I have the opportunity to enrich my own recovery by listening to the shares of others 3 or 4 times a week. The state of being being powerless. That state of being has been the motivation to get me places spiritually I wouldn't even come close to without having admitted I was powerless over alcohol and many other things. My spiritual awakening. My relationship with God is the single most important fact of my existence. Without the presence of a loving God in my life today, I certainly would not have experienced the peace, the love, and the joy that I have. The list of things to be grateful for is endless. Family, friends, sponsees, retirement, my home, my family, and the love that they give me. And lastly, each and every one of the days of sobriety I have been blessed with. And I got about a minute. And I'm gonna get this in. I wondered if I had enough material. But in closing, I want to address new people. Please, 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 please don't leave until the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous happens for you. I would have swore it would never happen for me, and it did. I cherish the presence of new people in a meeting. They enrich the whole meeting when they walk in the door. And please remember, if AA can work for me, it can certainly work for you. And remember that recovery is a journey. One of the handicaps everybody in this room has is when we wake up in the morning, we have to start from where we're at and move forward. And if we move even just a little bit, we're doing just fine. AA doesn't tell us we have to get to a certain point. There are no mile markers in Alcoholics Anonymous. You just start from where you're at and just do a little bit, and you're doing just fine. And the last couple things is, when I wake up in the morning, I tell myself that today is the most important day of my sobriety, bar none. None of those other days matter. Today is the most important day I have. And lastly, I believe that my best day is ahead of me, because the program still has a lot more to offer me, and I can still do better. I still can do better. And that's what I ask of myself. And I want to thank you all for listening and inviting me here tonight. I hope you guys got something out of it, because I got a whole bunch from giving it to you. That's all I got. Thank you.
Is it turned on?
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill. Hang out for a second.
Oh, okay.
So, thank you everybody for being here. What we have here is we have some 24-hour coins. And we like to give these out to people who would like a new way of life. Is there anybody here that has a desire to have a new way of life?
I'll just hold it.
What's your name?
Giselle.
Giselle.
Yeah.
Giselle, here's the 24-hour coin. I consider this the most important coin in Alcoholics Anonymous for one simple reason. If you stay away from the first drink today, that's all you really need to worry about. And that's all I've done. I got 49 years just by staying away from the first drink today. And somebody that told me that was an old timer. When I got here, AA was only 40 years old, and they had over 20 years of sobriety. And she was one of the first delegates that Alcoholics Anonymous had ever had. So thank you. Make each day count.
What is your name? Autumn.
Autumn, congratulations. Here's your 24-hour coin. Stay away from the first drink today, and that's all you got to do. You know.
What's your name?
Roberto, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Just do this one day at a time. You don't have to do anything for the rest of your life. You know, just stay away from the first drink and get to the next day. You know, you bet. Best of luck to you. Dolan?
Dolan.
Dolan, welcome. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous.
All right.
Here's the most important coin in Alcoholics Anonymous, because it's always today. And you'll have to deal with today from here on out. So yes, yeah, you will. So just make today a success, and you'll be doing just fine. Hang out with these people.
I'll take care of it.
Hi,
Elizabeth.
Liz. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
And this is a 24-hour coin. And it's the most important one, because today is what we have. You know how I got that one phrase about stay away from the first drink today? I pestered an old timer, and I kept saying, come on, this one day at a time is just to kind of pacify the new people and think the light's a little, the burden's a little lower. And she said, in an aggravated tone, she says, do you think you could stay away from the first drink today? And I said, you know what, I think I have the resources. And she said, then you can stay sober for the rest of your life, because it'll always be today, and it'll be the first drink that gets you drunk.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.